I'd like to welcome you to the July 13th, 2015 Committee of the Whole meeting. Ms. Schweikhofer, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Barner?
Present.
Ms. Grandillo?
Here.
Mr. Hatridge?
Here.
Mr. Horvath? Mr. Kovach?
Present.
Mr. Cudley? Ms. McDougall?
Present.
Mr. Vaca? Mr. Wolf?
Here.
I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes of June 22nd, 2015.
So moved.
Second.
Everybody say aye. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No abstentions, so that is approved. We do have 6 items on our agenda tonight of new business. The first being number A, employees generally, the Fire Department, Parks and Recreation Department. Chief, is that your, you want to handle some of it?
I'm asking you to approve the appointment of 3 part-time firefighters. These are replacements. I asked you back in November for 3. 1 got scratched, so that's down to 2. 1 moved away, so that's down to 1. And I recently made a part-timer, full-timer, so I need 3 replacements.
Okay. Any questions from council? Is anyone from the Parks? Thank you, Chief.
No, but that, the Parks is also a part-time seasonal worker. One of the workers is not returning, and so just a replacement of a part-time seasonal worker.
Okay, this has been requested to move to forward to council for action this evening.
So
All in
moved.
favor?
Second.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved to move to Aurora Council tonight, and will be suspended and voted on. Item B, it's a bid recommendation for 2015 asphalt road paving program. Mr. True?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. The bid opening was held June 24th at 10 a.m. here at City Hall Chambers, and we had actually 4 bidders. And the lowest and apparent best bidder is Roniak Paving, at a sum of $741,472.05. Roniak has performed very faithfully in the past for us. This contract, as you see, we have some of the money. We were requesting a few more dollars to complete the paving project for this year, and it's the Cemetery Road, the one that's still not paved, which is Cinders, Old Mill, Page Road, West Pioneer, and the church and City Hall parking lot here, the City Hall facility. That's your total of all the roads for this year.
Okay. Any questions from council to Mr. True? Did you push your button?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
So I was just moving it. Teasing
All right.
you, Aaron. But I give approval of it. We need it.
And this is also being asked to forward to council tonight and for a vote tonight. So, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
So moved. Second.
Thank you, guys, appreciate it. Okay, the third item is item C, easement with DDR, Ohio Opportunity. Who would like to address this?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Mr. Wolf? Mr. Farrell?
Mr. Chairman, there's actually, I'll address this easement. There's 2, items C and D on your cow agenda.
Okay.
There are 2 additional easements that we've successfully completed negotiation whereby the property owners will grant easements to the city to continue with our connectivity plan. We've attached a map. I think you've all been given a document that says State Route 82 sidewalk easements, and then there's a map here. If you look, they're all listed on here, but the ones we're talking about tonight, the DDR, that's the Farrington Square, the small blue line there, near 82. That's the DDR easement, if you will. The red lines represent where sidewalks are already currently. And then if I could just address item D, the other easement with J.P. Morgan Chase.
Please.
That property is down near Bissell Road, if you will. So those are 2 additional easements. With that, as you can see, that this is tedious work getting the easements, etc. It's taken a while, but we are making progress, and this represents phase one of the projects that we're looking at right now. So we're accepting the easements. This will allow us to actually conduct or to construct the sidewalks on those parcels.
Thank you, Mr. DePiero. Let's take one at a time. Let's address C first, and Ms. McDougal, you are first.
Thank you, Councilman Hatridge. Mr. DePiero, I see that it is the responsibility of maintenance as well as repairs for the businesses, not the city.
Madam Chair, maintenance, snow removal, minor repairs, maintaining are the responsibility of the property owner.
Okay, and just from experience in our neighborhood, hopefully our arborists will be responsible for picking trees that fit that size of sidewalk, because we've had a lot of issues in our neighborhood where the trees have gotten too big and the property owners are required to fix the sidewalks, yet they can't do anything about the tree. So hopefully we can do diligence and do that right this time. How is this process different when we're dealing with homeowners versus businesses, or is it pretty much the same?
Well, Mr. Chairman, Madam Councilwoman, our ordinances put it upon the homeowner or the property owner to maintain sidewalks, okay? In addition, we have an ordinance that requires, when a new building is built on a parcel, that sidewalks are required. That has not always been followed in the past, although under this administration and under the Planning Commission, under the leadership of Councilman Grandillo, we have required property owners, new building owners, to construct sidewalks. So I think that will help. So it's the same, it's just that with our connectivity plan, we are actually, in exchange for these easements, we are building the sidewalk for these property owners in order to accomplish connectivity within downtown.
Okay. I guess that's it for me. Thank you.
Mr. Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. DePiero, I see at the top of the one sheet that we've got for State Route 82 sidewalk easements, it looks like the first individuals on the list, the joint ownership, says property owners would not agree to a work agreement. This is a property that already has a sidewalk along the west side of the property. What is their objection, if I may ask?
Mr. Wolf, I think this is the lot that runs up against Bissell Road. I think that's what Angie described to me, right here. My understanding is that they wanted to be paid.
Were they, may I, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Were they paid for the initial easement that runs along the west side?
No.
'Cause so what is their reasoning, thinking that they need to be paid for a second easement along the south side of their property? And do we have any sort of leeway to exercise some sort of an easement based on the west side and carry it around the side of the property to the south side?
Well,
Because this is the one that says vacant lot at the corner of North Bissell and West Garfield. So there's already a sidewalk on the west side of that property, if I'm not mistaken.
There is.
So they literally, they weren't paid for the first one, but they expect
Correct.
to be paid for the second one? Do we have any,
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, when something is built on that property, they'll be required to build a sidewalk. They'll have to pay for it.
can we assess these people directly for that, to make sure that they're paying it out of their pocket as opposed to whatever's being built on there? I mean, this looks like the only stretch we're having a problem with.
Mr. Chairman, at this point, this is the only stretch that we've not been able to reach an agreement with.
Right,
And remember, this is different because we don't have right-of-way in that area.
right.
Because of the way that's why this has been a more tedious process. Had we had right-of-way, we would have had more leeway to build a sidewalk.
And the owners are in Kent, as I see?
My paralegal, Angie's done a lot of good work on this, as well as Ms. Januska. I'm not exactly where they live. I've been involved in the conversations, but I can't tell you where they live for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Ms. Grandillo.
Actually, Mr. Wolf answered my question, because I was saying, I was looking, thinking, okay, so we're missing one big piece of the connectivity. which they probably know, which is probably why they're requesting funds. So we'll have to get to the end of Bissell and walk in the grass until something happens, but that's unfortunate. But thank you anyway.
Ms. Barner?
Thank you, Councilman Harold Hatchard. I think this is obviously a huge stride, and I'm glad that this is moving forward. Hopefully, we could even expedite it sooner now that we have more things in place, and hopefully one homeowner won't deter the rest of a huge success in what the city and community's been asking for, and that is connectivity. So thank you. I'm excited about it, and I know the rest of council has been very supportive of it, so hopefully we'll be able to get through this little hiccup and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to take advantage of my time here, too. Mr. DePiero, on this, if you recall, or Ms. Grandillo might, that that sidewalk that's going from North Bissell east on 82 on the south side, was that a requirement that that sidewalk be built back when, because there's a sidewalk going all the way up North Bissell?
Mr. Hatchard, I do not recall that. I recall the sidewalk going in, but I don't know that that came to planning. I don't know how that happened. If it did, it was when I was not on planning.
Okay, Mr. DePiero?
I have no idea.
Mr.
Chairman. I would-
True, can you help us?
Yeah, no, I think they just built it. It wasn't required. They just built it with intentions that something was gonna go in that corner. So, it's been here for 14 years plus.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Okay, the administration has also asked that this be put on the council agenda tonight and voted on tonight.
So moved.
I have a first and second movement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. That will be forwarded to council for action tonight. And then let's do the same thing with easement D. Do I have a motion to forward this to council and be voted on tonight?
So moved.
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That will also move to council for action tonight. Okay, we're down to section E. Contract with Mutual of Omaha for life and disability insurance. Mr. Paul, you want to take that?
Yeah, that's, as you see, there's a rate guarantee already in effect. They had given us a 2-year rate guarantee. And so this is just a continuation of that program for life insurance for the employees. No change in dollar amounts or cost.
Okay, and this will just go for the first reading of council tonight.
Yes.
Do I have a motion to move to council tonight?
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That will also move to council for the first reading tonight. Okay, item F is a healthcare recommendation from Chapman and Chapman. I think hopefully all you guys, all you received the information that was sent out to you. I think there's another piece of this information that needs to be passed out by Ms. Aldridge. I have one already.
I have it too, thanks.
I love her. I knew my eyes would do that. I'm gonna have to put
Mr.
that
Paul,
behind
do you want to
closed
handle
doors.
this?
No, Karen and Walt is here.
I'm glad I
Okay,
got new
Mr. Chapman,
glasses.
step to the podium and please give us your name and address, please.
My name is Walter Chapman. I live at 280 Willard Road in Aurora.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, council members, Mr. DePietro. There's two pieces of information that I want to direct your attention to if I can. One is a single page, which looks like this. It's got the Aurora logo at the top of it. And it's titled United Healthcare UMR versus Cigna BAC Data Sheet. This is a highlight overview of what we think are the most salient points of the comparison that is the result of an extensive RFP process that we went through.
Oh, is it on here?
Does everybody have this? I have a few extras.
I didn't see it in my cow pack.
Just hold on one second, Mr. Chapman. Ms. Grandil will find it.
My cow packet ends at Mutual of Omaha. Close out, reopen another document, and then go back.
So we'll just have a short time out here, ladies and
Sorry.
gentlemen.
Randy, if you keep on scrolling down, it's on page 41.
Yeah, let me get to council, because I don't have it on that one. Okay.
Just open another COD doc.
Okay.
You can share with
And then
me.
go back and open up it's just been updated. Should be
Okay.
page 41.
Or you can't go to your inbox and get the letter from the mayor that was sent to us
Yeah, I
Friday.
can do that. Okay, it's downloading. You can
Okay.
start.
I have a printed copy as well, if you'd
That's
like.
okay.
Okay. The single page is a, we're ready, okay. The
Go ahead,
single-
Mr. Chapman.
the
Thank you.
single, thank you. The single page is again, an overview, and it's a fact sheet that highlights the reasons for the recommendation to move to UMR. UMR is a third-party administrator that is in the same business as BAC. They do the same functionality, and they are owned by United Healthcare. So what we are using is, recommending is a network change from the existing Cigna network to a United Healthcare network. One of the analytics that we did was a comparison of we actually took all of the providers that were used by the population. Providers are doctors, hospitals, et cetera. And we went over the last year, took all of those and matched them up as to how many were in the Cigna network and how many are in the United Healthcare network. The United Healthcare network is actually a broader network. They're both very strong networks. They have the clinic and the UH system, and they both matched up very well. United Healthcare was 1% greater. It's 98 versus 99% of all the claims that were used. So we expect no disruption with the doctors and hospitals that the employees want to use. So that was one piece of it. The real meat of this is that in that same course of due diligence, part of our analytics were to take the claims information, all the actual claims that happened, package them in a data dump, and hand those to different networks. And what we had was what's called a repricing exercise, where we actually said, if we were with you during the last year, and these same claims happened with you, what discounts? So one of the things we buy these networks for is the discount off of the actual bill charge. What discounts would you have given us? And they came through our analytics. United Healthcare, the best one was Medical Mutual, but Medical Mutual has a limitation of downtown UH campus. The next best one was United Healthcare. There was close to a 6% differential. That's a 6% differential on a $5 million initial gross bill. So the numbers there, it suggests a $300,000 savings. We're being conservative in projecting that savings, but the analytics are true. We perform these due diligence a lot, and it plays out as we've seen it. You're in a network that is a rented network from Cigna, not Cigna's deepest discount network, and this is going straight to United and using their deepest discount network. So the differential is something we've seen consistent in other exercises. That is the crux of the reason for the recommendation. Through the course of comparing UMR, I'm getting a lot of acronyms here. UMR is the new TPA that will replace BAC. Through the course of comparing those, we made sure that benefit levels would be able to be matched, mirrored. I talked about the network comparison, making sure employees could go to the doctors and hospitals they wanted to. We looked at, there's fees that are associated with the purchase of this network and this TPA service. We made sure those measured up. Those are all competitive. And this data sheet highlights that they're actually slightly improved over the existing scenario. So on the fixed cost side, I'm going fast here. I live in this world, so just slow me down if I'm going too fast. This large sheet, and I apologize for the small type. I'm testing. By the way, I sell vision glasses on the side if you'd like to. There's a lot of information here that needs to be displayed, and I'm sorry for the condensing of it, but it really helps to have it all on one page. So I'm going to go color coding. There's two primary pieces of information we're trying to get at. The fixed costs, meaning if we have no claims at all, what's our cost of doing business with this organization versus that organization? And the fixed cost comparison is the first green line going down across the bottom. So it's 2/3 the way down the page. And I'm sorry, I should start off. Going across the top, in yellow is the existing BAC contract. In pumpkin, I'm not sure what color that is the renewal BAC contract, no changes. Then in white next to that, so the third column over, is BAC having identical except for one change, which is a change in the stop-loss threshold from 65,000 to 75,000. And then we had UMR, quote, identical to that. So we have apples to apples from BAC and their best offer to the UMR best offer on all regards. With that, I direct you to the highest green line, which is 2/3 of the way down the page. And you can see that the fixed costs are quite comparable. They're slightly better with UMR than they are with BAC, but they're within $15,000. Fixed costs include our cost of insurance and our cost of processing, doing business with everybody, having them pay claims, paying us, all of our compensation is included in there. This is an all-in contract. So the fixed cost is one piece. Then we get to the meat of this, which is the claim dollars. And when we buy insurance from any of these guys, we put in stop-loss insurance. I know you're familiar with this. We've talked about it every year. Stop-loss insurance says, what if everything hits hard in a year? What's our worst-case scenario? What's our worst downfall? And those, I would direct you to the next two green lines. First green line is the expected, and what the carrier is saying they expect you to be at. The final green line is actually the worst-case scenario liability. And that's the one I think that you build reserves off of. I know there's some accounting that manages worst-case scenario. The city has never hit, to my knowledge, an aggregate. Is that correct, Mr. Paul?
Just once.
Yeah,
Just
one
once. So it's a very rare occurrence. In my 40 years of tenure, I've had 4 stop-loss hits on the aggregate side. It's a very rare occurrence. But it's sleep insurance. Regardless, the point is that we want the underlying stop-loss carrier, the insurer, who's ultimately putting a hat on this and saying, we protect you if it all gets bad. We want them to make sure that those numbers are in line with what our best offer is from BAC. The stop-loss insurer is separate from United Healthcare, as it is separate from BAC. The stop-loss insurance market is a secondary market, and we canvassed that market. We found a very large carrier called HCC. We have a lot of experience with HCC. They're a major player in the business across the country, and their contract will match the existing contract with Optum, which is your existing stop-loss insurance. We have assurances that they will mirror and protect. I know this was a concern changing over to a new carrier, but we want to make sure that there are no claims that are processed by the new TPA that are paid, and then all of a sudden we find out that the risk bearer, which is HCC, all of a sudden isn't going to cover them. And that will not be the case. That'll be part of the due diligence to assure that there's a matching of that. So all in, we have a situation where we have a equal, slightly better network. We have slightly better fixed costs, and we have a substantially better discount with the network being brought to the table. And that last piece of it is really the primary recommendation for going through the hassle of, oh, I have a new ID card, I have a new name, I need to be educated on it. We understand that that's not something we all want to do and look to do, but there's significant dollars, in our view, on the table with this, which is why we're recommending it. Are there any questions that I can help with?
Mr. Wolf?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chapman, obviously saving money is really important. First and foremost, I want to point out our employees are looking at a 99.5% match on their providers as opposed to 98.6, correct? So they're
Correct.
going up by almost a percentage point.
Insignificant, but yes.
So just meaning that they're not going to face any disruption. You pointed that out.
Right.
The $150,000, $275,000, is that the savings each year, or are we projecting that savings over the 2 years of this proposed contract?
No, yes, good question. No, that's per year, and that will be an ongoing savings. Now that, meaning that that differential will exist between the network that we are recommending versus the network that's being used. The reason for the variance is that if I have a plan and I have claims that happen to use this hospital a lot or that hospital a lot, the discounts by hospital vary by PPO. So United is a PPO, Cigna's a PPO. So if we have a change, fluctuation in where the services are used by the population, it could impact that discount differential. The discount difference here, though, is I wouldn't expect it to be more than 2% off of that. So at the end of the day, we can't, the only way to reprice it, the only way to get that exact dollar will be to wait till the new claims happen, take that data and send it back to Cigna, reprice it, and see what the differential is.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. So, one final thing, under the stop loss, I'm looking at the terms, and it looks like our current plan expires in a little over 5 years, but the proposed plan that we're gonna be going to, obviously, is just gonna be for the 2-year period, correct?
No, are you looking at the 7512 and the 2412
Yeah, I'm
numbers?
looking at 6312, 7512, 7512, 2412.
Yeah, okay,
So,
this is the
so
most
I'm-
complicated part of it.
Yeah, so I'm assuming, and probably wrong,
Yeah,
that we've got a little
Not
over
wrong,
5 years,
just-
okay, mistake.
it's a
So
harsh
it
word.
looks like we got a little bit over 5 years left on the
No.
Unimerica VAC, and we're gonna be looking at 2 years on it?
No, the first number actually refers to when the date is incurred. So the claim, the date the claim is incurred, and then the second number refers to the date it's paid. If you notice, all of these are always 12 in the second number.
Right.
So in our contract, when we move to United, to UMR, and have HCC, HCC will say, when was the claim incurred? It's got to be paid during the 12 months starting 9/1 going forward.
Okay.
So the question is, when was it incurred? In this case, they're giving a 24-month, so they'll back up 12 months from 9/1/15.
Okay.
And the 24 months from last 9/1 to the end of this coming year will be the date it has to be incurred. So what we really care about is how long back from the date we start. In this case, it's 12 months.
So it's the same for all those plans, it's 12 months back,
Correct.
60, okay.
Right. A 12-month, that means that a claim would have had to have been incurred prior to 9/1 of this coming year and have been floating around by a incompetent billing administrator for some service and be related to an individual that hit the shock claim, that had claims in excess of 65, or in this case, 75,000. So there's due diligence we can actually do to understand who is at shock and actually go back and look for any claim activity that's going on. But a 12-month thing in arrears, now you're talking about somebody who's sitting around not wanting their money for 12 months, which is pretty unusual.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay,
Okay,
Ms.
okay.
Barner?
Thank you. Mr. Well, sort of went over what I was going to review. But nonetheless, since I am on, I would like to say thank you. I'm very familiarized with United Healthcare. It's outstanding. I think also what to really point out is there is no, when someone does change to a new carrier, as you explained, that people have headaches of finding a new physician, finding out where to go, the inconvenience of that, and to not have that inconvenience and also have a savings and to have a better plan, I think is outstanding for the employees. So thank you for that. Again, as we know, with a lot of these managed cares, they're getting them bought up by the Cleveland Clinic and UH. There's really no independence out there. So they're all good, as you explained, but some are a little bit better, and it looks like this one is even that much better. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Chapman, I have a couple questions, please. What is UMR, what does that stand for?
I don't know.
Okay.
United Medical Resources, maybe?
That's what I think it is. It's United Medical Resources.
Yeah.
Okay. And let me, again, ask you just a couple questions. How far back did you go in your claims experience for all these?
1 year,
1 year only?
1 year, right.
Is it normal just to go 1 year and not back 2, 3, 4, 5
No,
years?
we normally do 2 years. So when we can, we do 2 years when the data's available. I think we had an issue with not having access to the second year. Yeah, I don't.
Sufficient.
Yeah.
Okay. Another question, and maybe my head's a little thick tonight. I'm having trouble figuring out where we're getting this $150,000 to $275,000 per year savings. I'm looking at the numbers here, and that doesn't compute.
Right, good question. Mr. Chairman, the second green line is the expected claims activity by the new carrier, by existing carrier as well.
Right.
When those numbers are developed, by the way, I should add that there was the let's see if I can walk through this. There is, with BAC has a unique relationship with the stop-loss carrier that is covering the city right now. They have underwriting privileges, meaning that they can, based on their best assessment of the case, actually they can sign off on rates. So they have a relationship with the carrier where their overall block of business is something that they have responsibility for and can take action on in terms of getting more aggressive or not more aggressive in a particular situation like the city. So the renewal of the existing plan was less competitive than it is now. So one of the good things by competitive exercises always is to get people to sharpen their pencils, and you're an attractive group, and you feed on that. We feed on that. We prey on that when we go out into the market through a RFP exercise. So number one, those numbers were higher until we got UMR onto the table. When an underwriter takes a best guess, which is really what it is, as to what the claims activity is going to be, because this is a fairly inexact science. They look at past years, but you could, as you know from fluctuating costs over the years, there could be a lot of activity in one year and things subsidize and settle down in the subsequent years. Those best guesses are ultimately, the only reason for them is when they write their stop-loss insurance on the worst-case scenario. So the green number actually doesn't mean anything in terms of cash to the city other than it's a budgeting tool for Mr. Paul. The real number that is the meat behind this is the bottom green number, 3079, which is if everything goes to hell in a handbasket, to use my French, but it really goes south. That's the worst case scenario as to what the city will pay. What we look for, ideally, when you have a situation where you're bringing a new network in, and I think this is the point you were going at, is the reflection of these numbers in that discount differential. So if United is saying, gee, we've got a better discount, why wouldn't their attachment factors, which is what that bottom green number is, actually reflect that lower number? And the answer is because you've got underwriters in different pockets. If we have one identical underwriter actually issuing both of these, we would see that. And we did see that in another quote when they actually quoted with the Cigna network. Their number was lower, but for them, it's almost like these are two isolated think tanks of the underwriter for UMR and the underwriter for Optum Health who are assessing this and making a projection of it. So it's not a good answer. You logically should say these guys should all be looking at the same data and having exactly this $250,000 or $300,000 differential in discounts reflected in that. But it just doesn't play out that way. Okay. All I can add to that, if I may, is the exercise of going through and taking the claims data and repricing it is something that is done widely now, and there's a real science to it, and it is, in fact, I absolutely could validate if those same claims occurred, there would have been a differential, well north of 200,000 for the city this year, based on the doctors, based on the hospitals that were used by the population.
Okay.
So.
I have just a couple more questions. I apologize to my council members here. There's a couple are still waiting to speak. One of the things that on this sheet, Mr. Chapman, is the plan designs for medical benefits will remain consistent. The plan designed for dental, it's a blind BPO, and that will remain consistent. The word consistent, does that mean the same
Yes.
or similar?
No, it means identical, because in this case, we will be taking the summary plan description, which is the ultimate document that guides what the TPA is supposed to pay on and not pay on, and we will be marching the existing document over to UMR and saying, mirror this. And since it's a third-party administrator, as opposed to going to a fully insured carrier, the nature of TPAs is that they're custom, so they can do whatever we want. So the idiosyncrasies, the unique plan designs that are in the existing platform will be matched.
Okay,
Yes.
just one other thing. On the network, how does the United Healthcare stand up on the actual network itself?
In terms of breadth of providers in the
Yes,
network?
Yes.
That
They
is-
gotta be bigger because that's a larger company, really.
It is, but what really matters is the network in town here where the
Right.
employees are using.
That's
And-
what I'm
and
trying
so
to get,
that
Mr. Chairman.
that differential won't really matter unless we're in Houston or wherever. So what we did, this was the exercise where we took the existing doctors, existing hospitals used by the population and created a list. Dr. Jones, Dr. Smith, there's identifying numbers that identify their provider IDs. We took that list and handed it to United and said, which one of these docs are in and out of your network? So we matched up side by side. So of the entire number of doctors and hospitals used by the population, this is what Councilman Wolf was talking about. There was a 1% difference, 1% improvement from 98 to 99 in terms of how many people, if they use the same docs they did last year, would be in network
Okay.
versus out of network.
One last question, I'll turn it over to my other council members. If I work for the city of Aurora and I have a situation where my wife is covered on the same plan, and we have a doctor that's out of the network, but she refuses to go to any other doctor but that doctor, do you or does UMR have the ability to call United Healthcare and ask them, is there any way we can get this doctor covered so he'll be in the network?
Yes, with an asterisk.
Okay.
Absolutely, but the notion that we would be able to sway the provider relations folks at the healthcare network management team of that carrier to bring somebody in, if there was somebody they were trying, ultimately it comes down to the dialogue between that provider and the carrier. And that provider is going to come in and say, hey, you need to jump through some hoops if you want to be in our network. You need to subscribe to our fee schedules. You need to subscribe to our information flow. We're expecting an exchange of data to make sure your practice is managed in a certain way. Those are outside of our ability to impact, and if there's a misconnect between those two entities in terms of what they're willing to do, the United's not going to turn around and say, oh, you want this doc in? Sure, we'll put them in, and pay extra fees or not have them subscribe to the information required. So it's, we can ask for it, absolutely, but it's rare that it happens unless it's in a rural area where they're trying to expand their network. And most of these networks are pretty well established, and in fact, they're going the other direction now. They're narrowing their networks instead of broadening them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chapman. You answered my questions. Thank you. Mr. Kovash?
Mr. Chairman to Mr. Chapman, I'm looking at the little box here, the square.
Yes.
Can you tell me, what does HCC mean? What are those words reflect?
HCC is the name of the insurance company that is standing behind the risk.
What is that name?
HCC, that's their name.
Houston Casualty Company.
Houston Casualty, okay. Can you explain that little box where about the no laser and the purchase and the renewal? Is that a plan outside of the plan that's above? Or is that all included?
No, this is all included. This is the second page of the same information on the first page, and these are just notes. To the, Mr. Councilman, to the question of lasering. Lasering is a practice by stop-loss carriers that affords the client, in this case the city of Aurora, at renewal time, let's say we have a shock claim. A shock claim would be a large claim that's likely to reoccur. So it's $250,000, it's a chronic disease, they're probably going to have another $250,000 next year. we have a $65,000 stop loss in force now. So if it's $250,000, we're going to pay out $185,000. They're going to pay out $185,000. We're going to pay $65,000. $185,000 plus $65,000 is $250,000. Here comes renewal. We know we've got this person on the tracks for another $250,000 next year. And the carrier comes in and says, all right, here's your renewal. It's 15%, but you know that guy there who we know we're going to get clobbered by? We're going to take that person and laser them. Laser them is just a term in the industry for pulling them out of the existing contract and saying, we'll give them insurance, but they're at $150,000. So they're essentially pushing that risk back to the client. It's a practice that affords you the ability to have an option and take the risk on yourself even more so. But in our opinion, and I think in the city's opinion, is something that we don't want to be subject to. So at renewal time, right now, we go to those existing carriers and say, we want a contract that guarantees you will not laser. So in the event of a shock claim, a large claim happening at renewal, they won't come back to you and say, here's your nice renewal, but pull this guy out and you're going to eat it on that guy. You're going to pay $200 of the first. Does that help?
And then the transplant at the bottom part. If I understand this right, you're going to be, okay, if you laser that or pull that responsibility back to the person, somebody's going to get caught here in this renewal of ending up paying. If they pull them out of the city's payment, that money is going to have to come from the individual that is insured by the city?
No, no. Are you talking about the second section in blue?
Yes.
HCC proposal also includes a discount, that piece. Mr. Councilman, that is referencing a separate policy that the city has had in place for years, I believe, that lasers people who have transplants out of the existing stop loss. What it does is it provides extra insurance for the city. So in the event that we have a shock claim and that claim is a transplant condition, this policy, which is relatively inexpensive, says that this carrier will cover the condition, cover the cost of that primary, meaning that will cover them before any stop loss insurance by the underlying carrier. We actually, in this situation, have redundant coverage for somebody with transplants. So the transplant policy will cover that person. Anything over and above that they don't cover will fall under the existing contract with the.
And
so
how
it helps in, I'm sorry, if I may.
Go ahead.
It helps in renewal activity. So at the time renewal comes, the worst case scenario for a self-insured contract would be to have a couple of really large shock claims that are going to go on again next year. We will not have this competitive bidding where a bunch of carriers are coming in and getting all hot and bothered on the group. You're going to have one carrier, and it's going to be the existing carrier, and you're going to care a whole lot about how they behave at the renewal. So this is really sleep insurance to help temper the impact of a shock year, which invariably will occur at some point in time.
And what if the employee is no longer an employee?
It doesn't matter. If they are covered on the plan through COBRA, it is what it is.
Okay.
As long as they're covered on the plan, this will protect them.
Thank you.
Ms. McDougall?
Thank you. Actually, I think Mr. Wolf was ahead of me somehow.
The light doesn't
Go
show
ahead,
it.
I'll go ahead.
No, go ahead.
That's because you messed it up, Harold.
Well, you defer to Mr. Wolf?
I defer to
Okay.
Mr. Wolf.
Mr. Wolf?
Real three quick, thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Mr. Chapman, in the purple box, or if you're in a paint store, eggplant, we've got 363 members. Looks like we've got 118 total subscribers. So if I do the math real quick, it looks like we're covering, for families, we're covering about 3.37 people under family coverage.
Right.
Okay. Thank you. The 12 months that we considered, what 12 months did we consider when we went back and did the rate comparison?
Are you talking about for the discount analysis?
Was it last calendar year? Was it a rolling 12 months from?
I don't know. the
It
answer
was
to that.
April through May.
Okay, so
the
including
fiscal calendar.
Fiscal calendar year?
April
Okay.
through May,
and then
or May through April.
Thank you, Mr. And so this is one last question to Mrs. Aldridge. The Healthcare Advisory Committee,
Yes.
how did they feel about the plan when it was presented to them?
I think that they were mostly concerned about that their benefits wouldn't change at all. They didn't really necessarily worry about the fact that they were getting a new medical card for it. So they were in favor of saving money, but they really cared about being able to do it with the same doctors.
Good, thank you. That's all.
Ms. McDougal?
Thank you, Mr. Hatridge. Mr. Chapman, two things. One, we had an increase of head count coming up. Does this take into effect that increase in head count?
This takes into.
No, it's not based, I think we got another, probably maybe 120 employees, but it's not. This is based on the one that they have here, 118. So all the costs and all the numbers that are shown are basically on 118 people. It will increase. Some of these numbers will increase just because the head count increased.
Okay. Secondly, I know in our city, we had a horrific accident last year. Is that having an effect on our ability to get, is that raising our rates because of that?
I don't think so.
That was a workers' comp claim.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with health insurance.
Oh, okay.
That would make sense. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Chapman. I
sir.
appreciate you answering everyone's questions to the best of your knowledge, your ability. I appreciate it. The administration wants to move this to council for a first reading tonight. Do I have a motion to forward this to council?
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that will be moved on to council for first reading tonight. At this time, we're done, I think. That's all the agendas we have on the
Second.
we have a moved and second to adjourn. All in favor say aye. Aye. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.